Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, when God is up to something, things don't always make sense. Sometimes it feels like life is spinning out of control, like everything that could go wrong is going wrong. But I came to tell you today, don't be discouraged. What looks like chaos is often a divine setup. What feels like a breakdown is really a breakthrough in disguise. You see, before God moves, He often shakes things up. He will disrupt your comfort, shift your surroundings, and push you out of what is familiar. Because if He left you where you were, you would settle. If He didn't remove some people, close some doors, and stir things up, you might never step into your destiny. Disruption is not rejection, it's preparation. Joseph had a dream, but before he could see the promise, he had to go through betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. Every painful moment was positioning him for the palace. Delay is not denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean God isn't working. Sometimes He takes His time because He's aligning things in a way you can't yet see. And don't you dare be discouraged by the doors that have closed in your face. God never takes something away without the intention of replacing it with something better. That opportunity you lost, that relationship that ended, that situation that didn't work out, it wasn't because you weren't good enough. It's because it wasn't part of your destiny. When God is up to something, He will redirect you. He will protect you from things you thought you needed. Some of you have been asking, why am I going through so much opposition? Let me tell you why. Because the enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. If you're under attack, it's because there's something powerful inside of you. The enemy sees your potential even when you don't. The resistance is proof that you're on the right path. But let me remind you of this. Faith isn't about knowing every step. It's about trusting that God is leading the way. You may not understand why you're going through this season. You may feel lost, confused, or frustrated, but faith says, even when I don't see it, I believe it. Even when I don't understand it, I trust Him. So don't give up. Don't quit now. What looks like a setback is really a setup. What the enemy meant for evil, God is about to turn around for your good. You're closer than you think. Your breakthrough is on the way. Your testimony is already in motion. Because when God is up to something, it's always bigger than what you imagined. Before God moves, He often shakes things up. The process of divine elevation rarely begins in comfort. It starts with disruption. When God is getting ready to shift you, He will first unsettle everything that has become too familiar. He will allow situations that push you, challenge you, and make you uncomfortable, not to harm you, but to prepare you for something greater. Think about it. Moses was living in Pharaoh's palace, content and privileged, until God disrupted his world by igniting a fire inside him for His people. He was forced to flee, only to be called back to confront Pharaoh and lead Israel to freedom. Joseph was his father's favorite, wearing a coat of many colors, but he had to endure betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment before he could reach his destiny in the palace. Even Jesus Himself, before stepping fully into His ministry, was led into the wilderness to be tested. When disruption comes, it is easy to misinterpret it as punishment, failure, or rejection. But what looks like everything falling apart is often everything falling into place. That job loss isn't the end, it's a sign that God has something better. That relationship that didn't work out wasn't a mistake, it was God's way of making room for something greater. That unexpected detour isn't delaying you, it's positioning you. Sometimes we hold on to things that were only meant to be seasonal. We cling to places, people, and situations that no longer serve our purpose, and God has to shake us loose. Because if He didn't disrupt it, we would settle for less than what He has for us. So when things start shifting, don't panic. When doors close, don't lose hope. When the familiar is taken away, don't despair. It's not the enemy taking control, it's God setting you up for your next level. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. One of the greatest tests of faith is waiting on God when you don't see any evidence that He's working. It's easy to trust Him when doors are opening, when prayers are being answered, and when things are falling into place. But real faith is trusting that God is moving even when everything feels stuck. God is never in a hurry, but He is always on time. What feels like a delay to us is often divine preparation. Sometimes He's not just preparing the blessing for you, He's preparing you for the blessing. You may feel ready, but there are things in you that still need refining. Your character, your mindset, and your spirit all need to align with the weight of the blessing He is about to release. If He gives it too soon, it could crush you instead of elevate you. Think about Sarah and Abraham. God promised them a son, but years went by with no sign of the promise. In their frustration, they tried to force the plan by having Ishmael through Hagar, but Ishmael was never the promise Isaac was. The delay wasn't denial. It was God's way of ensuring that the promise came in His perfect timing so that no one could take credit for what only He could do. David was anointed as king as a young boy, but he didn't step into his throne overnight. He had to go through years of battles, betrayals, and hardship before the promise became reality. God had already declared it, but there was a process before the promise could manifest. The same is true for you. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. Every moment of waiting is working something out in you. Every delay is strengthening you, preparing you, molding you. Don't lose faith in the waiting. The enemy will try to whisper lies, telling you that God has forgotten about you, that you missed your chance, that it's too late. But the devil is a liar. If God spoke it, He will do it. If He promised it, He will bring it to pass. His timing is not our timing, but when He moves, it will be right, it will be powerful, and it will be undeniable. Delay is not denial, it's just God's way of making sure that when the blessing comes, you are fully ready to receive it. Rejection hurts. Closed doors can feel like failure. But what if I told you that every no was actually God's way of protecting you? Every opportunity that slipped away, every relationship that ended, every situation that didn't work out, none of it was by accident. When God closes a door, He is not punishing you. He is redirecting you. We often pray for God's will, but when His will doesn't match our plans, we question Him. We cry out in frustration, asking why He allowed something to end, why He didn't let that opportunity work out, why He took us down a path that seemed to lead to a dead end. But here's what we forget: God sees the whole picture. What we think is best for us is often limited by our own perspective. He knows the dangers we can't see, the struggles we aren't prepared for, and the greater blessings that are just around the corner. Think about when the Israelites were leaving Egypt. The shorter route to the promised land was right in front of them, but God led them through the wilderness instead. Not because He wanted them to struggle, but because He knew that if they faced war too soon, they would turn back. What looked like a detour was actually divine protection. They saw a delay. God saw a setup. Sometimes we chase things that aren't meant for us. We beg God to open doors that were never part of our destiny. But when He doesn't let it happen, it's because He has something better. The job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, the promotion that passed you by, none of it was a mistake. If God allowed the door to close, it's because He's preparing a greater opportunity that aligns with your purpose. The enemy will try to make you feel forgotten, overlooked, or unworthy. He'll tell you that if God really loved you, He would have made things work out the way you wanted. But don't fall for that lie. God's plans are always greater than ours. If you trust Him, if you keep walking even when the doors close, you will look back one day and thank Him for not giving you what you thought you wanted, because what He has planned is so much better than anything you could have imagined. The enemy does not waste his time attacking something that isn't a threat. If you're going through intense opposition, if you feel like the attacks have increased, if it seems like everything that could go wrong is going wrong, take a deep breath. That's not a sign that God has abandoned you. It's proof that you are carrying something powerful. The enemy sees your potential even when you don't. He recognizes your anointing before you do. And because he knows what's inside of you, he's trying to stop you before you get there. Look at Joseph. The moment he had a dream, the attack started. His own brothers turned against him, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery. Not because he did anything wrong, but because of what was inside of him. His destiny was too great for the enemy to ignore. David was anointed to be king, and suddenly Saul, who once loved him, wanted to kill him. Jesus stepped into his ministry, and immediately the enemy tried to take him out in the wilderness. Every time God prepares someone for something great, the enemy shows up to oppose it. And that's what's happening in your life right now. The reason it feels like the enemy has unleashed everything against you is because he's terrified of what you are about to become. He's not fighting you over where you are. He's fighting you over where you're going. He sees the breakthrough coming. He sees the impact you're about to make. And he knows that once you step into your calling, once you realize who you truly are, once you fully embrace what God has placed inside of you, there will be nothing he can do to stop you. But here's the good news. The enemy can attack, but he cannot win. The word says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. That means the weapons may form, but they will not accomplish their purpose. The enemy may try to discourage you, but he cannot destroy you. He may try to block you, but he cannot stop God's plan. If God has spoken it, if he has anointed you for it, if he has declared it over your life, there is nothing the enemy can do to take it away. So don't give up in the battle. Don't quit just because the attacks have increased. The pressure is a sign that you are close to something major. The greater the attack, the greater the anointing. The stronger the opposition, the bigger the breakthrough on the other side. Stand firm. Hold on. Keep pushing. Because the very thing the enemy is trying to stop is the very thing God is about to release in your life. Faith is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting God even when you have none. It's easy to believe when things are going well, when doors are opening, when prayers are being answered. But the real test of faith is when nothing seems to be working, when you're waiting without knowing how long, when you're walking a path that doesn't make sense. That's when faith is required the most. God never promised that the journey would be easy, but he did promise that he would be with you every step of the way. The problem is we want clarity before we move. We want guarantees before we take a step. But faith doesn't work that way. God often gives you just enough light for the next step, not the whole path. He told Abraham to leave his homeland and go to a place he would show him without telling him where it was. He told Noah to build an ark when there was no sign of rain. He told Peter to step out of the boat and walk on water without letting him test the surface first. Faith means moving even when you don't understand. It means trusting that even when life doesn't look like it's working in your favor, God is still in control. It means believing that delays are not denials, that closed doors are divine redirections, and that setbacks are setups for something greater. But here's where endurance comes in. Faith is not just about believing for a moment. It's about holding on when the journey gets long. It's about trusting even when it seems like nothing is changing. The enemy wants you to give up before you reach the promise. He wants to wear you down with discouragement, to make you doubt that God will come through. But don't fall for the trap. Your faith must outlast the test. Your endurance must be stronger than the attack. You may not understand why things are happening the way they are. You may feel like you're in a season of waiting with no clear answers. But God is faithful. He does not fail. And if He has brought you this far, He will not leave you now. Keep believing, keep walking, keep trusting, because what's on the other side of your endurance is worth every step of the journey. What looks like the end is often just the beginning. Life has a way of knocking us down, making us feel like we've lost, like the story is over. But when God is in it, there is always another chapter. The very thing the enemy sent to break you is the thing God will use to bless you. Your setback is not the final word. It's just the setup for a powerful comeback. Look at Joseph. Betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. His life looked like one failure after another. But every setback was secretly positioning him for the palace. The pit wasn't the end. The prison wasn't the end. It was all part of the process to get him to his purpose. What the enemy meant for evil, God turned for good. David was anointed as king, but before he could wear the crown, he had to run for his life. He hid in caves, lived as an outcast, and faced battles that should have destroyed him. But what looked like defeat was actually God's way of shaping him into the leader he needed to become. By the time he finally stepped into his calling, he wasn't just wearing a crown, he had the wisdom, strength, and endurance to carry it. Jesus himself faced the ultimate setback. Arrested, beaten, and crucified, his enemies thought they had won. The grave seemed like the final word. But what looked like death was actually the setup for resurrection. 3 days later, he rose with all power in his hands, proving once and for all that God always has the final say. That same resurrection power is working in your life. You may feel like you've lost too much, like you've made too many mistakes, like it's too late. But God doesn't let pain go to waste. Every tear, every struggle, every closed door, it's all leading to something greater. Your setback is just a setup. That disappointment, it's setting you up for a new opportunity. That rejection, it's making space for the right connection. That failure, it's positioning you for a testimony that will inspire others. So don't give up in the middle of the process. Don't quit just because things look dark right now. God is not finished. The story isn't over. The best chapters are still being written. What's ahead of you is greater than what's behind you. Your comeback is coming. Hear me today, when God is up to something, it won't always make sense. The process won't always be easy. There will be moments of shaking, moments of waiting, moments of opposition. But if you hold on, if you keep believing, if you refuse to give up, you will see the hand of God move in ways you never imagined. What looks like chaos is often divine alignment. What feels like rejection is often protection. What seems like a delay is really preparation. And what the enemy meant for evil, God will always turn for your good. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are right in the middle of God's plan, and the breakthrough is closer than you think. So stand firm. Keep the faith, because when God is up to something, it's always bigger, greater, and more powerful than anything you could have ever expected. Your best days are still ahead, and your testimony is already in motion. Can somebody say amen? 2.